Peace, family.
Leave it up to me while I be living proof to kick the truth to the young black youth.
Brother, if you just analyze history, Malcolm X, El Haj Malik told us that history rewards all research. Every struggle has been the young people. Even the civil rights movement, it was not the old heads. It was the young people who marched with Martin Luther King. It was the young people who were behind El Haj Malik, El Shabazz, Malcolm X. It was the young people who was in the Black Panther Party. And if we remember our brother in the Million Man March, the Million Youth March, Brother Khalid Muhammad, it was the young people. And so, no, I'm not surprised as this information is going out there. The old heads, you know, my peers and above, most of them, we have to write them off. And we just have to leave a legacy. You know, we had youth underneath that, but that was about the average age, at 35 to... These are people who've been through the educational system already. They know they've been bamboozled. They know that they did not get their history, and they're waking up. And I think there was an article on the internet that said, how come more people are learning about African history on the internet than they did in school? It's because we're moving into the age of Aquarius, and all secrets are now going to be revealed. But you have to be a seeker. You have to be a seeker of the knowledge. The blind will continue to stay blind. Okay, but those people who are seeking knowledge, see, at one time, you could only get this knowledge if you belong to the Freemasons, the Masonic order, or some secret order. But in the age of Aquarius, that age is going, see, the Piscean age is coming to an end. That's all over. Now we're coming into an age where all those who are seeking will be able to get it. You can learn on the internet in a month what it would take you a year to learn in 1990. As you can see, the African-centered education we must organize and be prepared to teach the children at home, on the weekends. First, every educational organization should be based on a detailed, written, comprehensive plan. And every written plan should have the architectural blueprint of the organization and the process of its function and structure towards the whole. So you can see these circles interrelate each other. You have the African Council of Elders, which we talk about. And even before that, the ancestors. We have the African professional, the educational team that's actually going to do the teaching. You have the physical plant, your actual building or houses, wherever you're going to do this at. Then you have a dynamic African-centered administration, an administration that understands ancient Kemet, can speak the Medu Neter, understands the spirituality, and a faculty that's going to talk about the exact same thing. Not people who say, do what I say, but not what I do. People who are actually living the legacy. And the curriculum is designed to empower you. And the students are all people of African descent.
It's important that those of us who watch these types of programs in our chat room, that we try to be as courteous and respectful and as informative and to the point as possible, because people are learning even from what is said in the chat room. You know, people are finding out, can I come back again? Are these people I want to engage with? Can we grow together? And so what we do is very important. It isn't just those of us who are up here in front of this camera, but those of you who may never be in front of the camera, you're as significant as we are, because the question you ask may send me to do research I never thought about. You know, you may point out something to me that I saw and missed, and now I'll go back and look at it and say, you know, that brother or that sister really opened my eyes. Now I have to change my view to some degree on this thing. So we're about seeking knowledge. You know, the Quran as a document said, seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave, even to the ends of the earth, even as far as China. Now that's the Quran saying. It didn't say seek knowledge only in the Quran. It says seek from the cradle to the grave, even to the ends of the earth, even as far as China. In those days, China was thought to be the end, the end of the world. So seek knowledge, and then teach the knowledge you have. But be willing to learn, and be willing to say, the one thing I know is how much I don't know. And then open yourself up to know more than you knew before, we started the process.
Yes, so the young people, and plus the young people are computer savvy. So no, they're searching up. People are telling me, look, Mfundishi, I saw every YouTube you got. I saw it, like they on it. Once they get tapped into it, once you lead them to the water, they know how to drink. See, the old folks don't. You can lead them to the water, but you can't make them drink. You just show the young people where the water is, they'll go get theirs. You see, people already know they've been bamboozled. Right now, the Wazungu, the Europeans, have taken over the study of ancient Egypt. Almost every book you can buy on ancient Egypt is by a European. And 99.9% of these Europeans are professing that the ancient Egyptians were white people. They even got a new movie come out, The Gods of Egypt, all white cast. It just did a movie last year that didn't make much money. All white cast, blacks were only slaves in the movie, basically. See, the Cecil B. DeMille's days of the Ten Commandments, that's over, right? And so I want people not to just take my word for it. I want them to be able to read it themselves. You see, I get so excited because when I'm reading with Nature, it's like the ancestors are talking to me directly. I don't need a middle person. Right now, we got a middle person between us and our legacy. We got European white Egyptologists, and many of the black Egyptologists have been whitewashed, so they're preaching the same thing that the white boys are preaching so that they can get a job, so that they can get tenure, so they can work at the university, So when you learn to read it yourself, brother, you ain't got to take nobody's word for it. And there's more literature in the Madu Netcher than all the ancient languages together.
Now, I put this one out because I wanted to show all of these symbols of religions. Whenever you go around the world, you see the Baha'i, you see the Buddhist and the Buddhist posture, you see the Buddhist wheel, you see the cross for Christianity, you see what they call the fish for Christianity, which is really a symbol of a vagina, which was used in the ancient Tigris-Euphrates system long before Christianity. We see the symbol for Confucianism. We see the symbol for the Judaic system, the Shinto Japanese system. Again, we see the Star of David or the dog star out of Kemet for the Judaic system. We see the Hindu system, Islamic system, the Sikh system. Everybody's symbol for their system is there except the African symbol for their system. And I contend that the African symbol for what we are talking about, that we call our spiritual system and our religion, the African symbol is a man, a woman, and a child. A man, a woman, and a child, who we call in ancient Kemet Asar, Aset, and Haru, who the whites have misunderstood, misrepresented, miscopied, called Jesus, Joseph, and Mary. And so that symbol of man and woman and child represent the continuity of life. You cannot have life unless you have two opposite sex that have an intercourse, and a sperm and an egg is passed, and you produce a replication of yourself, which is your eternity, because that is your future. And that must be constantly replicated in every generation in order for life to go on. And so that, as far as I can see, is the symbol that we projected to represent the greater part of how we understood reality. What we're looking at here is other people's symbolizing their understanding of the fragments that they drew from the periphery of our ancestors' understanding.
How can you subscribe to a doctrine that was taught to you by your former oppressors? How does that actually make sense? To subscribe to a doctrine that was taught to you, given to you by your oppressors. Christianity, Brother Sai, is not an indigenous African religion. If it wasn't, and I can prove this to you by sharing this with you. I don't know if your audience is familiar with the dumb verses that were, it was actually a proclamation, or they call it a papal bull, that was produced by Nicholas V. There was also a papal bull that was produced by Alexander IV called the Intercatera. And these papal bulls allowed the Portuguese to go over to Africa and to the New World, brutalize and colonize the people based on the fact that they weren't Christians. They were called pagans. So these papal bulls were written in Latin, but they do have English translations of them, Brother Si, where the church sanctioned slavery. They said go over to Africa, brutalize them, colonize them, invade them, because they're not Christians. So Christianity is not a religion. It also says in the oh my goodness, in the British Museum, that Nubia, they have some artifacts showing that Nubia and Egypt were forcibly converted to Christianity. They were forcibly converted to Christianity. So brothers and sisters, this isn't a Christianity isn't a doctrine that's indigenous to Africa. Islam came with the Arabs. The Arabs actually enslaved the Africans prior to the Europeans, and this doctrine came with them. So brother Si, my beef is that first of all, I'm not going to subscribe to a doctrine that is promoted and handed to me by my former oppressor. And secondly, it's myths. They're stories, Brother Si. In the Bible, you know, they talk about all of these different characters, and I'm going to call them characters because that's exactly what they are. They don't have any archaeological evidence even showing that these people existed. I mean, in First Kings and in First Chronicles, you read about these stories of King David and how he battled all of these different tribes, and he won. And then you had King Solomon. He was supposedly had expanded his kingdom. But where's the evidence of this? Because we see evidence of Tutmosis III in museums, where in museums with Stella showing all of his great accomplishments. We see that written. We see our stories written in Medjugorje, in pyramid texts, coffin texts. So we see our story, but where is the story? Where is the evidence that the Hebrews were ever enslaved in Egypt? Where is the evidence? Where's the evidence of King Solomon? It says in the Bible that Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. Where's his bloodline, Si? If he had 1,000 women, where's his bloodline today? He should have an existing bloodline today.
Let's say 2000 BC. That's supposed to be the time of Christ. If we take all the information that's available in the ancient world and multiplied it by 100, that would still not equal the information that's written in the Mfundishi. See, we were prolific. We wrote everything. We wrote on the walls. We wrote on the columns. We wrote on the ceiling. Brother, we wrote on papyrus. We wrote on paper, leaves. You know, so we left information. It's almost like our ancients knew that we were going to be in this situation. And they said, no, we're going to leave images for you. We're going to leave a state of excellence for you. We're going to leave this writing for you because we know that y'all will be able to read it at some point. And you will know the truth for yourself.
So here we have, and I like this one, I would say the Egyptians were black, and they had the world's first known writing system. And so as we look at this system, this is the Mfundishi. This is what the Europeans call the hieroglyph. Yes. Now, if you look, this is a writing system that's older than any other writing system in the world, except the ones down in ancient Sudan and in the Great Lakes area, out of which this one comes. And so look here, the cross. Thousands of years before Christianity, there's the cross, which they claim they use as a symbol because of Jesus' dying. So just this one photograph shows that whole concept is a fraud. So just to kind of get you started, so you can look with your eyes and see things, simple little things, you know, that people sort of like think they can say it because we don't have any information. But once you get a little bit of information, you go like, oh, something's wrong with that picture. And then we come here, the pyramid text, the oldest written religious text in the world. At least the oldest written religious text known to the world, because they just entered the Great Mount in Sudan the Great Temple Mount in Sudan, and they found a whole nother set of writing there that precedes and predates these writings, and I'm pretty sure that they were religious writing. But to us today, the oldest known text is this one in the tomb of Eunice. But even here, it wasn't new. This was somebody repeating an older text. And so in this text, what the Europeans call the book of Genesis, much of the elements of what they call the book of Genesis is found in this text.
Moses supposedly wrote the first 5 books of the Bible. Where is his handwriting? I can go over to Egypt right now and look at the handwriting of our ancestors carved on the pyramid walls. So where's the handwriting of Moses? It says in the New Testament that Paul wrote all of these epistles, these letters to Timothy and to the church of Corinth. Where are these letters? Can we see his handwriting? Where is it? And we can dig a little deeper, Brother Sai. We can even talk about the King James translators and how it says in the Bible that the Bible was inspired. What does it say in the Bible? That it was created or produced by men inspired by God. I think that's what it says in the Bible. But in fact, it was King James and about 47 to 54 translators who decided to come up with another version of the Bible. And they did not, and I'm going to say this, I feel like it's erroneous, Brother Sai, to even call it a translation. Because when you think of a translation, you take something out of one language and you put it into another. Is that correct? But in the British Museum, there, I think it's called, there's a document called the 21 Rules of Translation. And it has the handwriting of Richard Bancroft. And these were rules that the translators had to follow in order to translate the Bible. And one of the rules were that they had to stay as close to the bishop's Bible as possible. So they did not translate the Bible from the original Hebrew. Okay, what they did was they took pre-existing material and they massaged it.
Now, we as Africans gave birth to all humans. So I want to make sure it is clear here as you look here. We as Africans gave birth, and you can see, I know. Peace, family.